Alright, so 2 days ago I reviewed Deep Blue Sea from 1999. It was schlocky, sure, but it was also a well-made and fun shark movie. Now I'm going to review a shark movie that is the total opposite in one of those categories. And spoiler alert, it's not the schlocky category. Hey everyone, it's Alexander the Real Mr. Robinson. Welcome to the channel, and this is my review for Shark Night, which came out in 2011 and was marketed as Shark Night 3D. This movie is directed by David R. Ellis, who directed Final Destination 2, The Final Destination, and Homeward Bound 2: Lost in San Francisco. Bet you didn't know that, did you? Anyway, this movie follows a group of college students who go to a lake house for the weekend. They go to school in Louisiana, and one of the girls has a lake house in the middle of a bayou. But wouldn't you know it, sharks start popping up in this bayou. They explain that it's a saltwater bayou, which that's bullshit, but we'll just go with it. But yeah, shark attacks happen, people get picked off one after another, and we soon find out that there's a reason why these sharks are in this lake in the first place. Now, as I mentioned before, this is directed by David R. Ellis. And another movie that he did that I forgot to mention was Snakes on a Plane from 2006, which is one of two movies that I usually refer to as examples of never take advice from the internet, because the internet does not know what they want in terms of a good movie. Now, I will admit that Snakes on a Plane is a far better and a far more entertaining movie than the other film where the filmmakers took advice from the internet. But that being said, much like how Snakes on a Plane is the prime example of don't listen to the internet when making a movie, Shark Night 3D is the prime example on how not to make a shark movie. Because I saw this movie for the first time on Netflix in prep for this review. I was planning to do Deep Blue Sea and then the video that you'll see on Friday, but I wanted to try to do one other shark video in prep for Shark Week. And Shark Night was on Netflix, so I said, fuck it, I'll watch it. And the best way I could describe this movie is that MTV made a Friday the 13th movie with sharks. Let me rephrase that. A MTV-produced Friday the 13th movie with sharks that's PG-13. One of the things that just absolutely cripples this movie and keeps it from being fun on any sort of level is the fact that it's PG-13, and it's mostly bloodless. The most blood you'll ever get is like a fountain of blood coming out of the water. It's such a laughable moment and so ridiculous for a shark movie that I end up quoting the Universal Studio Tour at the Jaws segment when that very moment happens. Well, they had a lot of guts. And look, there they are. But the problem is, unlike the studio tour, these deaths are not played for laughs. I mean, they don't even try to be played in a humorous effect. It's very similar to the first couple of Friday the 13th movies, where it's trying to be scary and trying to be a horror movie, but some of the moments are just so unintentionally funny that you really don't know what the movie's trying to do. And the reason I bring up the MTV aspect is because there are a ton of montages played to alternative rock where the characters are heading towards the campsite. Might as well be. It's a Friday the 13th movie with sharks. The lake house. There's a montage where the characters head to the lake house, and it's all done in fast forward. Like I said, it's set to alternative rock, and it's just montages of these characters having a good time. And it just so feels like something that MTV would air. And then when it comes to the acting itself, it's pretty terrible. I mean, nobody in this movie really stands out as being good. And much like with the Friday the 13th movies, there's really no recognizable people. I mean, there are only two people that I actually recognize in this movie. The first is Joel David Moore, who's more famous for playing Owen in Dodgeball and Norm in Avatar. And then Katharine McPhee. And watching this movie, I thought to myself, she looks familiar. Where have I seen her before? And then it suddenly dawned on me, oh, that's Pierce's ex-stepdaughter from Community, Amber. Yeah, those are the only two people that are actually pretty recognizable, but they're not that charismatic. I mean, there's nobody in this movie that's really charismatic. And again, I hate to bring up the Friday the 13th comparison, but might as well since I'm reviewing those movies in October. the characters are all stereotypes. Like, this movie pretty much does a checklist of all the stereotypes that you have in a Friday the 13th movie. You've got the jock, you've got the academic, you've got the stoner, you've got the final girl who is good looking but more innocent compared to her slutty friends. You got the redneck stereotypes, who some of them really look like they could be related to Crazy Ralph from Friday the 13th. Like, it's just so cliche, it's so unoriginal, it's so uninspired. And then when it gets to the actual shark stuff, I already talked about how bloodless this movie is, but the CG on the sharks is pretty terrible. Like, it's maybe a notch above what you'd see in a Roger Corman film or an Asylum film, but it's still pretty bad. I mean, there's actually a wide variety of sharks this time, and there's some creative things to it. I mean, there's a scene where Katharine McPhee's character actually gets killed by cookie cutter sharks, which, not sure if cookie cutter sharks would actually attack humans, but at the very least, it's an inventive kill. And then there's a scene where one of the jocks, because there's two in the movie, is on a jet ski driving away, and then a great white just jumps out of the water and just grabs him. I mean, it's a funny moment when you watch it, and especially knowing that this movie was made for 3D. But again, the fact that it's so bloodless, it just kills the moment. I mean, this character doesn't even get chomped in half by the shark, like many of the characters in Deep Blue Sea. Which, by the way, I should probably point this out right now, the opening credits is played to a bunch of stock footage of real sharks just doing shark things. And then for some reason, there's a shot of one of the animatronic sharks from Deep Blue Sea, and they use the exact same shot where the shark jumps out of the water and eats LL Cool J's bird. I mean, the bird is not in this shot, but you watch that moment and go, wait, you just stole that from Deep Blue Sea. And then that exact same shot is the first thing you see during the end credits. And I'm like, did you guys get sued over the fact that you stole footage from Deep Blue Sea? Because we can tell the difference between a Deep Blue Sea shark versus real sharks. And also, much like with Deep Blue Sea, this movie has a problem where it doesn't know what a tiger shark looks like. There's a character that gets killed by a shark, and that same character, before he gets eaten, calls the shark a tiger shark. And then when they show you the shark, you look at it and go, that's a sand tiger shark. Like, tiger sharks are threatening, they're one of the most dangerous sharks out there, but a sand tiger shark, while it looks menacing, they keep those sharks in aquariums. Those sharks are pretty much puppies and harmless compared to actual tiger sharks. So, yeah, clearly there was not a shark expert on the set of either of these movies. But whereas one of those movies comes out being a fun guilty pleasure like Deep Blue Sea, the other is Shark Night 3D, and it's terrible. And the last thing I should mention in terms of just terrible stuff is how the sharks actually got into the lake. Why are they attacking? Now, this is the point where I spoil the movie, because two things, first of all. One, if you're not familiar with my channel, in my retro reviews, I tend to spoil reviews anyway, because I talk about this movie with the impression that you've seen it. And two, this is one of those movies where it's like, who gives a crap if I spoil it? But anyway, it's revealed that the redneck stereotypes in these movies are actually making some sort of snuff TV show where they get young attractive people in this area and then have sharks kill them. Basically, they have cameras taped to the shark's underbelly so they can get footage of the sharks mauling these people. I mean, that moment is just downright stupid already, and in real life, that production would have been shut down immediately and those guys would have been arrested. But just to add a layer of cruelty to this explanation, it's revealed that one of the rednecks is actually the ex-boyfriend of the main character, played by Sara Paxton. And he apparently orchestrated this whole thing to pretty much get revenge on her. I mean, that's just downright cruel, and especially watching it in this day and age during the big Me Too movement, that just... there's just a level of ickiness to that, and you really want to see this character get killed in the most horrible way possible, which he does, but unfortunately you don't get to see it because, you know, PG-13 shark movie. So is there anything at all that's good about this movie? Anything? Well, I already mentioned the death by cookie cutter sharks, which doesn't sound plausible, but at least it's inventive. There are actually two other elements of this movie that I like, but they're probably in the most petty ways imaginable. The first is the academic stereotype. I do like how this character is not your average, like, nerd. Like, he's actually a good-looking guy. He looks like he could pass as a jock, but he just happens to be the academic stereotype. And then throughout 90% of this movie, they put Sara Paxton and Katharine McPhee in bikinis. So there's some eye candy right there at the very least. But outside of that, this movie is just flat out terrible. And the fact that that last thing I said about those two actresses being in bikinis through most of the movie is a positive, that goes to show you how bad this movie is. Like, I have to dig deep to find something that I liked about this movie, and I landed on girls in bikinis. So, yeah, I'm almost on the verge of telling this movie to go burn in hell, because it's just the most inexcusable type of shark movie you can make. Especially since this movie came out a year after Piranha 3D, which was a massive bloodbath of a film. But the only thing that's keeping me from telling this movie to burn in hell is that I honestly didn't have much hope for this movie. I mean, it's really hard to make a shark movie that lives up to Jaws. Like, it's damn near impossible. But if you're not going to try to meet the standards of Jaws to be an epic masterpiece of a film, at least try to be thrilling and try to make it suspenseful, which this movie doesn't really do at all. Like, this movie could have gone one of two ways. Either just go ridiculously over the top, like the Friday the 13th movies, and play up the laughs. It might not be good, but it might be a little more entertaining. Or just try to make a straightforward thriller. I already mentioned Piranha 3D, which was directed by Alexandre Aja, but his very next movie is the movie that Shark Night could have been and should have been, Crawl. The more I think about Crawl, the more I really dig it, and I think that movie doesn't really get the respect that it should, because it's an effective thriller, but with alligators. It's very well made, which is something that cannot be said about Shark Night 3D. And the fact that this was David R. Ellis's last film before he sadly passed away is kind of a bummer. I mean, his filmography may not have been superb or even good, but the fact that this is his last movie is just like, what a way to go. So I'm going to be nice and say don't waste your money on this. There is no reason to see this movie at all. There are other better shark movies out there, for better and for worse. That's all I gotta say. It's just terrible, and that's it. And there you go, that's my review for Shark Night. I do have one more shark-related video coming out on Friday, and it's actually the one that I'm more excited to talk about than anything. But now I want to know what you guys think about the movie. If you've seen it, what did you think? Whatever the case may be, let me know in the comments below. And until next time, I hope you enjoyed this review. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, leave a comment, support my Patreon page, follow me on social media, and until then, this is the Real Mr. Robinson telling you there is only one.